Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Mark here from the UK. Thank you for checking in for another case study for April 2018. As you'll see from the heading there, we've got breast cancer related. Now, I've got a question mark over that. What I wanted to do today is to take you through and show you how, sometimes when I'm doing this assessment, I start to see some correlations. I start to see some patterns that seem to correlate to some of the conditions that clients may be experiencing. And one of them is certainly breast cancer. When I see breast cancer, I quite often see sugar-related issues. I see calcification related issues. I see some. Often we'll see some issues in the blood as well. Although that's not the case for this one. We don't see much in the blood. But I really wanted to really just take you through and just show you some of the thinking behind, when we do start seeing some of these numbers, or especially when we see numbers that are way out of whack, and there are a couple of numbers way out of whack, and really, I guess, apart from the two or three numbers that are way out of whack, there's not much else to talk about. But when you do see these numbers, it sort of raises a little bit of an alarm, if you like, and it's a little bit of a red flag. To start digging a little bit deeper and go like, oh, you know what? There's something going on here. We really need to dig a little bit deeper. So this client who had the breast cancer, she had conventional treatment, had the all clear. Actually, if we go through, we'll see just a little bit of blurb there. It was over a year ago now she was diagnosed. So she's had surgeries and she's had radiation as well. Okay, and just recently she's starting to experience a few side effects that she experienced before. So she's getting a little bit concerned about things coming back, and obviously that's why she's doing the testing. Blood type A. Look, as soon as I see blood type A, as most of you know, blood type A is a red flag for digestion, red flag for sugar issues. Okay, a red flag for alkalizing, for an very alkalized bloodstream because of calcium issues. Okay, so calcium precipitation, calcification, bone spurs, all these sorts of things. And as I mentioned just now, when I start to see these things, often I will see some, I have, not often, but on occasion, seen some correlation here with clients with breast cancer. 7 out of 10 well-being scores. So this client isn't feeling too bad in regards to overall well-being. There's obviously some concerns there in regards to what's going on, and what environment have I got here that may have an influence or may have some sort of influence on what's going on, and making, providing an environment that's conducive to these things happening, or we've got an environment conducive to these things not happening. And as you'll see as we go through, although there aren't that many exciting pictures to look at in regards to the blood pictures, and the numbers are relatively stable. There are a few things going on, but there are a couple of numbers that are way out of range, and when I see these numbers way out of range, it's always interesting to talk through and explain to you what I'm thinking when I'm looking at these. Okay, because often when we do these assessments, the numbers will fluctuate a bit, a little bit high here, a little bit low there, blah, 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 not too bad, not too bad here, not too bad there. But when I do get the numbers that are way out of range, it really sort of raises a red flag in regards to, well, it's sort of, maybe we've just got to look at things a little bit deeper, and maybe there's some relationship here to what's going on, okay? Because I think I've mentioned it before, often we'll go through this assessment, and until we go through, when we look at the numbers and we look at the bloods and we go, well, you know what, there's not a whole heap of stuff going on there, and then I do the consult and we talk for about an hour, and then we pick up a little bit more information. But it's not uncommon to go through the whole process and go, well, there's maybe just a little bit of tidying up to do. There's not a lot that's coming through. But when I see these radical numbers, we know that there's something going on. We know we've got to start taking notice. We know we've got to start digging a little bit deeper. All right, just have a quick look at the bloods. You're probably a little bit bored going through all these bloods all the time, but anyway, we'll go through them. Top left. For those of you that are new to this, there's a couple of people that have started started this program a little bit late, so they might not have seen these pictures before. Top left-hand side is what we're looking for in the blood pattern, and other different patterns, different colorations. You know, white patches, black, dark patches, and what it's going to tell us a little bit, tell us a story about what's going on. So what are we looking at here? 1, 2, and 3. Look, if you look at number 3, what's pretty obvious there, you can see those elongated black lines. Whenever I see that, you can almost guarantee that there are going to be some structural issues. Okay, neck, back, shoulders especially. It doesn't necessarily have to be the neck, back, shoulders, but more often than not, that's the case. How that's reflected in the blood, and you know, whoever worked this out way many years ago, it's amazing. But look, 99% of the time we'll get this right. Whenever we see those elongated lines, I'm going to be talking to a client that does have these structural issues, and I was right again here. If we go up to number 2, you can see the darker center here. So darker center, anything darker center, we know we're going to have some dysbiosis, some toxic gut. Okay, anything dark in the middle, toxic gut. Middle is sort of our gut area, our reproductive organs and whatnot. But the darker we are in the middle, 98% positive we're going to have some dysbiosis, which is toxic gut. If we zoom in a little bit here on number 1, I think that's zoomed in from the number 2, you can start to see some of the little specks, little white specks in the middle here. Now there are two different sizes. You've got the really small ones, which are pretty consistent, the size, if you can see my cursor moving around. That's usually some sort of gut sensitivity. And if we're going to have dysbiosis, we're going to have some digestive issues, and you know, we're a blood type A, we're going to have some digestive issues for sure. The odds are we're going to have some sensitivities. Okay, a lot of issues, a lot of gut issues, a lot of sensitivities, a lot of allergies are down to really, quite often down to just the fact that we have poor digestion. Okay, we're putting stuff into our system that our body doesn't recognize, and it starts to react. Okay, so we've got a little bit of that going on. We've got the little white specks. The larger specks, now they're quite consistent in size too, not too many of them, but when we see them in the middle, it's usually a sign of some adrenal stress. Okay, you know, whenever I'm going to be, if I'm going to be working with a client that's been struggling with their health for a while, you can almost guarantee there's going to be some adrenals involved. So we're going to see a little bit of that. Okay, and if you look at number 1, just to the left of the one there, you can see just a little bit of that fibrin line sort of filled out a little bit with this white. It's coming through a little bit yellow, but it's white polymerized protein. That's a little bit of lymphatic stress, probably more than anything else. Okay, so just a little bit of a sign that there may be some lymphatics involved, and I think if we go a little bit further, we'll see that there are. If you look at number 3 too, you can see, look at the top left. Look at those dark lines. That's fibrin. It's a protein. That's telling us that we have good protein levels in the body. Okay, it's a clotting agent. Okay, and if we didn't have good protein levels in our body, we wouldn't really get that really good solid black webbing there. And if you look at number 3 and number 2, but definitely number 3, you can see it's quite poor. If you can see my mouse moving around here, you can see there's very poor fibrin, very poor of this dark fibrin pattern going on. All right. So straight away we can sort of safely assume that we're going to have some issues with protein digestion, protein assimilation. Okay. Once again, if we go back to being a blood type A, if we have a client that hasn't been working on digestion, well, you can almost guarantee we are going to have problems with digestion, with protein digestion for sure. And if we have problems with protein digestion, then it will be due primarily down to the fact that we have poor hydrochloric acid or stomach acid production. Having low hydrochloric acid production is the root of so many evils when it comes to our health. So there are so many things involved when we start having problems with hydrochloric acid. So it's a big deal, which is why always when I see an A, I know I'm going to see digestive issues. And I think I've mentioned it before, a large percentage of my clients, or the largest percentage of my clients by far, are blood type A. Okay, and the reason why, I believe anyway, is because of stomach acid issues. Okay, low stomach acid issues. We have a little look a little bit further at some other, number 4, number 5, you can see another elongated line. It's a little bit whiter, but doesn't matter. That's another structural stress marker there. Number 4, you can see poor protein again, so digestive issues. Number 6, you can start to see the dark area in the middle again. But there's a few other little stresses coming through. It's a little bit hard. It's sort of not localized. It's just in the gut area. We know there's something going on there. There's a little bit of stress in the gut area. It may be to do with the liver, the gallbladder area. It's a little bit hard to tell. It's not coming through strong enough. But just see, when we get these dark, these larger areas of white polymerized protein puddles, we call them, they are a sign that there is something a little bit more, something going on a little bit more than just sort of general systemic stress, especially if they're localized. And there's a little bit of that going on there. But we know we need to look deeper. We need to sort of have a look at some of the numbers to see if it makes any sense. With I would be thinking gallbladder more than anything else, gallbladder liver area there. Okay, if we look around the edges again, we can see there's very poor protein assimilation. Okay, little white dots in the middle again, so gut issues, sensitivities. It may not even be to food. It may be sensitivities. It may be allergies to. It may be reactions to. It could be even a reaction to dust or cat fur or whatever. Okay, we can't with this testing. We don't get down to specifically what it is, but we just know that there are some issues there. More often than not, it's to do with food allergies. Okay, it's just a response to the body not knowing what's going on because we have poor digestion. We're not breaking down the food as we should be. We have a poor digestive capacity, so our whole system is compromised, and we're starting to probably put stuff into the bloodstream that we shouldn't be putting in, and the body doesn't recognize. Number 7, not sure if that's a close. No, it's another picture there. Once again, you've got the dark area in the middle, a little bit darker anyway, and the white specks and whatnot. And once again, a little bit of this sort of localized stress here. It's not really big enough to really make a fuss. If we did another blood test, we may get some more markers, a stronger indication, or maybe some more of these. But I'm not that concerned about it. It's just some general sort of stuff going on there in the gut area. We know the gut's compromised. Okay. We're going down to the last couple of pictures here. Well, number 9, really, it doesn't tell me much. It's probably not I don't know why I've got that on there. It's not a really good picture. It's not really telling me much at all. But number 8 is for sure. You can see here this band. You can see it's an obvious band here. And this is around, it's a lymphatic band more than anything else. Okay? So, cloggy lymphatics. And it's very, very common to see that. Okay? So, lymphatics are all about skin stimulation, movement up and down. This is about, although this client does exercise, I think she does regular exercise, it's not uncommon that even if you're doing exercise, they still have a lymphatic system that's a little bit clogged up. And obviously, if we have a lymphatic system that's clogged up, well, there may be some relationship there to what's going on with the breast. Okay, we've got, and when we need to get that lymphatic system stimulated and cleaned up, because we don't want everything congested and whatnot. Okay, so we come across the number 9. Like I said, there's not much really there. I've just put that in there to fill a gap, I think, more than anything else. Okay, what are we looking at with as far as the questionnaire is concerned? Not a lot of red boxes, not a lot of imbalances, and this person's saying, well, I'm 7 out of 10, so I'm not feeling too bad, and it's sort of coming through, and I would agree with that. But what is coming through is quite important. Okay, you see down the bottom, what I do is I have these little red markers pop up when there are things that are really serious things that I need to talk about. Blood type A is something I always talk about with the client as far as blood type diet, and it sort of just prompts me more than anything else to make sure we think about issues with digestion and issues with sugars and whatnot, and as we talk through to see if there's any correlation with other stuff that we discuss. Okay. And inverted pHs as well. This is the big one, okay? And we'll if we look over the top right over here, you don't have a look at the detail, but a urine pH of 8 and a saliva pH of 7. I mean, urine pH of 8 is incredibly high. All right, and most of that's going to be calcium. So the big question is, where's that calcium coming from? What's going on with the calcium? Um, Low breath rate is another big marker here. On the if you have a look at down here, the fat burning here, you can see number 10. But look, electrolyte deficiency, poor digestion. Well, we're going to have electrolyte deficiency, running a little bit catabolic. Um, this is are we running catabolic, or we need to look a little bit deeper there. We've got a few markers there. Insomnia is a really big marker. Muscle loss is another big marker. Body's just burning through. It's struggling for protein. It's very catabolic. It's breaking down, and we tend to, when that happens, the body tends to turn to muscle for protein because it can't get it. pH is interesting with the urine pH being so high. So this is the one this is the marker really I'm talking about. The 8 and 7 and the breath rate. Remembering the rate in which we breathe is dictated by the pH of our blood. The more alkaline we are, the slower our breath rate is, because our body wants to hold on to the CO2, which converts to carbonic acid, which acidifies the bloodstream. This is what the body uses on a second to second basis. To help buffer acids and help buffer the pH, making sure that we can maintain stable pH. And if we get too acidic and our body starts turning to acid, well, then our breath rate starts speeding up so that we can actually vent out the CO2. Okay, so that breath rate is always a big one I look at. Okay, and 10 is very low. When I say very low, it's not uncommon to see 10. I've seen people with 5, and I ask the question, how on earth do they get up out of bed, or actually be able to, get around, move around, and walk when they've got a breath rate of 5? It really tells us that the blood is really way too alkaline. And some of you haven't gone through the part of the lessons where we talk about pH control and whatnot, the dynamic pH control. But when you do, you'll learn that when we talk about pH, we're talking about the level of electrical resistance. The more alkaline we are, the more resistant we are to electricity flow. The more acid we are, the less resistant we are to acid flow, to electricity flow. Okay, so 10 with a breath rate of 10, we know we have quite a bit of resistance. We have quite high alkalinity. We have a lot of electrons in the bloodstream. And energy isn't going to flow. There's going to be resistance to flow. When we have a resistance to flow, well, in this case, we have an electrolyte deficiency issue, or at least low minerals. So we're not really pushing much current against this resistance. If we were, I'll just mention this now, this is when we have a person that's quite hot. Because if we try and push energy, you push energy against resistance, what do you get? You get heat. And we tend to end up having a lot of energy loss through heat. But with this person, they've also got some low levels of electrolytes and minerals in the system. So it's sort of, you're not necessarily going to get that come through. All right, let's just go a little bit closer here. Look, a systolic of 110. Is it that low? It's low enough. Okay, if you go to the doctor's probably going to say that's not too bad. But look, if we look at fatigue, insomnia, cravings, cramps, we know that there's some issues there with minerals. Okay, anything to do with cravings, we know that the body is looking for minerals. Cramps, well, when we're talking about cramps, what we're talking about, maybe we're talking about magnesium, maybe we're talking about calcium. Maybe calcium is going to be something that comes up a fair bit here. Okay, pulse is a little bit low. Now, the resting to standing pulse difference greater than 12 did pop up. But because of the digestive issues that came up, and we'll look at those in a minute, plus the fact that we've got quite a few markers there, there's no question that there's some issues coming up with electrolytes and minerals. Okay, usually that resting pulse to standing greater than 12 will light up green when that condition is met, and that's a really strong marker that we do have an electrolyte issue. And usually I would depend on that to validate or to confirm that it is an issue. That is an issue. Like I said, it didn't come up this time, but still, I've mentioned this many times before. We've got to look at all these numbers and make a calculated not guess, I guess, but you know, you've got to make you've got to look at everything, not just the blood pictures, but not just the numbers, but then we start working through and talking to the client, and then we've got to make some assumptions based on the evidence at hand. This is like doing an investigation. Okay, gather the evidence, and if we've got enough evidence, we can safely assume that we've got issues in those areas, and I can safely assume that we've got some issues there with minerals and whatnot. If we come over to the catabolic, I mentioned that just now. Look, urine pH is way too high. Saliva pH 7. That's not a big deal. So look, one of the first things, no matter what happens, when we see a urine with inverted pHs, is, well, the first thing we do is we confirm that. We need to confirm whether that's a consistent reading, and it is with this person. Excuse me. And then we've got to take action to be able to, and push that. We need to push that urine back down as a matter of priority, because what's happening here is it's a bit like things are going in reverse. Okay, the urine is filtered blood. It's what the blood. It's all the toxic crap that the body's getting rid of. We expect that to be a little bit more acidic than what the body's holding on to. Okay, so when it's very alkaline, and it's actually even higher, and it's quite a significantly higher than saliva, we know something is up. All right, this is just something is really wrong, and we need to look at it. Okay, so this is the red flag. And like I said, the first thing I'll do then is, the next thing I'll do is going to have a look at the breath rate. We'll come down to the bottom here and look at breath rate to see if that confirms whether, if we have urine pH of 8, well, we know that the body's got the blood's too alkaline. If the blood is too alkaline, we're going to expect to see a low breath rate, and we do. Okay, so we have that sort of correlation there. Okay, interestingly, the glucose reading is quite low. Okay. So when we start to see this, I would expect at a breath rate of 10 that we would see a glucose reading a little bit higher than 63. So this begs the question, what's going on? You know, because sugar typically will pull in calcium into the bloodstream and increase the calcium levels of the bloodstream. We start getting precipitation, we start getting calcification because of the calcium to phosphoric acid ratios being out of whack. And sugars are really big, has a big influence in that. And I would expect to see glucose a little bit higher. So there's a question mark over that, because if we go over to the left here, we'd say, well, it's moving into the fast oxidizer side of things. But the breath rate is a really big marker to say, no, this is a slow oxidizer. Has to be. The body's trying to hold on to the acid, or is there something else going on? I would suspect, and I do suspect, and I'm still working through with the client with this, is remembering glucose isn't measuring total sugars. What if we have a sugar digestive issues with sugars, and we're not converting to glucose? Well, then we're not going to have high glucose. So I suggest this is more digestive related than anything else. So it's one of these numbers that can throw you a little bit. You just got to use your head a little bit, and to sort of, like I said before, we've got to think through these things and just say, well, you know, some of these numbers have heavier, are weighted a little bit heavier than others. And breath rate is one of those big ones. You know, why is the body breathing so slowly? And especially when we know we've got a pH of 8, you know, where does that come from? Well, it comes from calcium more than anything else. Calcium's the most alkalizing agent on the planet. I mean, this is where we get I think calcium and phosphoric acid is what's used to measure the alkalinity, total base, and pure acidity. What else we got here? Not much else coming on. Like I said, it's quite weighted on the carb burning side of things. But once again, I don't take too much notice of that. But I come down here, breath rate again. So acid alkaline balance. Remembering, for those of you that are new to this, I don't take too much notice of this. These are good markers in regards to telling us the result of some, to be able to correlate and look back and be able to correlate with other numbers. But it's the breath rate, not the acid or alkalinity of the urine or the saliva necessarily that tells us whether we are acid or alkaline. It's the breath rate that tells us. Okay, so that's why it's telling us a little bit of alkalosis going on there. Okay, breath hold, well, that's a little bit subjective. The breath hold, it's the breath rate that sort of outweighs everything there. But we come over to digestion, and what have we got? Burping and bloating and passing gas. Well, straight away, when we see those two together, burping and bloating and passing gas, what do we mean by that? Burping and bloating, well, we're not digesting. Okay, we're fermenting. We're fermenting, and we've got bacteria in the gut that shouldn't be there. Okay, now this person could be eating a terrible diet and putting a whole heap of carbs on top of a whole heap of protein and getting some fermenting going on there. That could be the case, but this isn't the case with this person. It's down to the fact that they're not producing enough hydrochloric acid. Okay, so they have bacteria in the gut. They have a lot of fermenting going on, and passing gas is a really good sign that the fact that you got some issues with gallbladder and bile. Okay, so there's some issues there, and it's no-brainer once I see those. Although, interestingly, there are not many other markers that have come up. Those two are very, very, they're very, very heavily weighted. Okay, and I'm always going to see burping and bloating. I'm always going to see, nearly always going to see passing gas when I have a blood type A client. Okay, down to the fact that we don't have enough hydrochloric acid, and remembering it's the hydrochloric acid that really triggers the gallbladder and the bile flow, and in turn that triggers the pancreas. This is why quite often we'll have problems with sugar as well. Okay, all three need to be working together. Stomach acid, the acidic chymes released from the stomach triggers the and it's the fats as well, of course, in the chyme coming from the stomach that triggers the gallbladder, and in turn that triggers the pancreas to release its pancreatic enzymes and whatnot and bicarb to be able to balance out and to be able to buffer the acidity coming from the stomach, and this is where digestion happens. Okay, so no brainer there. We know there's some stuff going on there with digestion, and once again, pancreas, sugar, calcium, alkalosis. All these sorts of issues are pointing towards blood type A and possible calcification, precipitation of calcium, having problems with energy flow because of the alkalinity. If we don't have energy flow, well, how is our body going to be able to do work for us? It doesn't have the resources. It struggles. We're lacking in if we go back up again here, we're lacking already in minerals and electrolytes. Okay, so even if we had those minerals, we had those electrolytes, and we have these problems with alkalinity, well, then we're going to still have a problem with energy flow, because we're going to have a resistance to flow of the energy, and we're going to have a hot person. We're going to have a person that's losing a lot of energy through heat. Okay, so there's a few things here. We have a body that doesn't have the resources to do the work it needs to do to start with. Okay, it's going to struggle to start with, even without some of these things in place. And we're already behind the eight ball. All right. Does eating meats or fats restore energy? Well, that's another marker. Of course, there is some digestion going on. This person is still alive and still has some energy, but that's another marker of poor digestion. All right, let's have a look at some of the things we talked about with this client here. Okay, grounding and earthing. We'll just go through this quickly at the top here. As most of you are aware, I do this. I aim to fill out these protocols in some sort of hierarchy, so that we start to build a foundation, and we build upon that foundation. Okay, remembering that what we're doing here with this work is we're not fixing necessarily targeting a specific problem or fixing a specific problem. We're building a foundation so that the body can do this and to be able to do the work of healing itself. Okay, so we've got to have the basics, we've got to have the fundamentals in place, otherwise this isn't going to happen. And this is what I do here. So grounding, 10 to 15 minutes 3 times a week. Look, it's a very vague number there. And obviously, there's a lot of you living in North America. You know, you've got snow outside for 6 months of the year or whatever. This isn't going to be so easy to do. But you can, of course, buy grounding mats. You can buy grounding devices. You can buy grounding sheets and whatnot. And you can plug grounding devices into the mains, which is, of course, your house is grounded. Um, so don't underestimate the power, especially this day and age, and especially if you're working in an environment where you're around a lot of offices and you're around a lot of electrical fields, EMFs, computers, strobe lights, whatever. All these sorts of working in these sort of artificial environments, you're going to be picking up a lot of these electrical issues here, and we're going to start running into issues where we start to get blockages, and we run into issues with blockages where we're going to start having issues with messages being passed around the body, and of course it's fundamental. Okay, I mean, we're electrical chemical beings, so let's get the electricity right. Let's make sure that we have a means for electrical flow around the body, and of course to make sure that as much as possible we are grounded. We are meant to be we're meant to be we're meant to be connected to the earth. We're not meant to be walking around in rubber soles, which is, I think, one of the big reasons why we tend to manifest some of these issues over a long period of time, especially when we're living in artificial worlds and, like I said, artificial offices, and rarely connecting to earth. We start building up these very subtle issues that build up over time, and on their own they don't seem that serious, and probably if in isolated instances they're not. But we're like plants. Things take time to happen. They can happen over a long period of time, and just because they're not happening today doesn't mean they're not going to happen in 3 months' time or 6 years' time, because the process is already in place. We are starting to manifest now because we're not doing some of these things. Okay. Filtered water, of course, making sure that we at least get 2 liters per day. It's a general number, but 2 to 3 liters a day. Adding good salt. Of course, if you're living in a freezing cold climate and you're not sweating much, it's going to be a little bit different than if you're going to be living if you're living in the tropics. But the important thing there is to make sure that when if you can, add some good salt to the water. A pinch of good salt every time you have a drink of water or something like that can really make a big difference. Okay. The salt, 1 to 2 teaspoons. When I say that to some people like freak out. They go, "My God, that's 5 to 10 grams." Yes, it is. It's quite a bit of salt. And for most people, especially people that are low in electrolytes, this is important. Okay, I've helped people turn their lives around by doing little more than especially older, older ladies especially that have grown up to believe. Then they've had a husband who's died from a heart attack because he was told that that his diet was too bad. He had too much salt in the system. They've grown up to believe that salt is bad, and certainly the table salt is bad for you. There's no question about that. That does cause and can cause problems. So what happens is the woman tends to not have salt because she's been led to believe it's really bad for you, and they tend to end up having very, very low blood pressures and very, very low levels of minerals and electrolytes, which in turn slow down the whole process of electrical movement around the body, and they run into so many problems. They start adding some salt and things start picking up very, very quickly, and sometimes this is something that can happen within a couple of hours. It can be that simple. Not for everyone, but don't miss that. Don't make sure that if you're working with clients, making sure that they are taking adequate salt. We don't want to start working on the TV without making sure that the power, we have power. Okay, we don't want to start working on the body if we have some fundamental issues of energy and electrical flow. It's not, we're working in the wrong order. Okay, P5P B6. Now this is the B6 or the P5P, which is the active form of B6. It's acidic. This is what I will always use when we have inverted pHs. Okay, there are other minerals we can use ascorbic acid. We can use phosphoric acid. depends on what we're trying to do for different things. But we have a pH, we have a saliva pH which is in range, which is 7, which is at the top of the range, which is okay. It's the urine pH which we want to move. And P5P, the B6, the active form of B6, does a very good job of that. It'll move urine, but it won't move saliva, okay? So this is important. As soon as you see inverted pHs, once again, confirm, get the client, or if it's yourself, to do some further testing, maybe 2, 3, 4 days, excuse me, to just confirm that those readings are consistent. Because sometimes, you know, we do get errant readings, and we don't want to just react necessarily off of just one reading that may be just a little bit different because of something they ate or drunk, or something was a little bit different for that that day, and the readings were out, and you know they do some readings the next few days and they're okay. So just confirm before we intervene, okay? But definitely, you know, as I mentioned before, you know, the breath rate really sort of corresponds with this issue that we do have a problem with blood being way too alkaline. Okay, remember urine is filtered blood. So really, I guess out of this whole assessment here, this is the big one. And really, once we get to this point, this is something I would recommend that the client do before we move any further, just to make sure that we know where we're at. Okay, because you know, taking B6, I would expect a few things to happen. As soon as urine pH starts coming down, the person will start feeling better. They won't feel so fatigued. It can be as simple as that. Sometimes, as far as this is one of the few biomarkers that you can push very quickly, especially when they're out so far, that can have a significant difference as far as how you feel. Okay, so as soon as urine pH comes down, and we don't want to get down any further than 5.5, which is the lower end of the scale, and from 8 to 5.5 is a long way, so I wouldn't expect this to happen in a hurry. But what I would expect to happen is, as soon as you or your client starts taking the B6, and you start taking one at a time, and then monitor your pH a couple of hours later, just to see what happens, an hour or 2 hours later, you are going to start feeling the difference, and it can be radical. Okay, this is another thing that I often ask clients when they say they get these strange headaches, especially at the top of the head, back of the neck, start to feel a little bit weird, a little bit lightheaded, just some weird stuff going on. First thing I'm going to say is, what's going on with your pHs? And if they're inverted, B6, if they're not inverted, if you've just got high urine pH, it's still below saliva pH, well then we'd use ascorbic acid. If we've got really high saliva and we've got really high urine, I'll tend to use phosphoric acid or something like that. It's just, you know, I talk more about that in the acid alkaline lesson, and I'll talk more about that as we go through. And once we get through the whole process of going through all this theory stuff, I'll be bringing up more scenarios and sort of like cheat sheets, if you like, to things to look out for, and what to grab and what to look at if we've got to start looking at different types of the same thing for different conditions. Okay, so P5P, that's the big one. All right, and at this, like I said, at this point, I would say go ahead and do that before I go any further. Okay. MSM, now you see I've made a note there. Look, MSM is such a powerful mineral supplement. It's something that most of us lack, but it's very catabolic inducing. So we just got to be a little bit careful. And with this client, she didn't come up that catabolic. Okay, there was a little bit of it going on, and you know, I'm a little bit sort of sitting on the fence in regards to, is it a real issue or is it not a real issue? And you know, if there are a lot of strong markers to confirm that yes, it is a catabolic issue, well then I wouldn't put MSM on the protocol. But you know, things like the fact that she's concerned and she's had breast cancer about this, you know, MSM can really help with that. MSM is like a systemic cleanser. Okay, opens up cell membranes. gets things moving. You know, works on the liver, works on inflammation. Okay, so it's such a great mineral that if there's any possibility of using it, I will, and even with some catabolics. But we need to make sure a couple of things, that you read, or the client reads, and make sure that read PDF on the MSM, and make sure they take it very, very slowly, especially if they're pushing catabolic. Okay, and you can see the afternoon would be the last. Don't take the MSM too late in the day, because if you are pushing a little bit too catabolic, well, then that's going to keep you awake. Okay. And then we come down here, and as we come down, really, there's just some standard stuff that most of you have seen me recommend before. We've got the Synthol AMD because we have some dysbiosis. I didn't see any signs of parasites. That doesn't mean that this person doesn't have any, but I'm quite happy, just to move forward with the Synthol, because it's a really good gut supplement. It helps on so many different levels. There's a bit of candida going on and whatnot. It helps with that. There's some systemic enzymes in there which are really going to help with any protein issues. This is going to help a little bit with the lymphatics as well, because a lot of lymphatics get clogged up with proteins that can't get moved out of the system. Well, the systemic and the proteolytic enzymes are going to help with that. So the Synthol AMD it's a really good all-rounder. And we're not looking at someone that's that's got a really high markers of parasites. I tend to, especially when someone's going through a lot of stuff, and there's going through a parasite cleanse is quite a big, it's a big job. It's quite a process. And at this point, working with a client, really, I just don't want to have to do too much at the same time. So the Synthol is why I've recommended there. D-limonene, okay, bile, liver. I know there's some bile issues going on. Okay, we've got passing of the gas, so we know we've probably got a little bit of congested gallbladder, and if we've got that, we know we're going to have some liver issues. We're going to have some liver issues. We're probably going to be backing up into the blood and whatnot. So D-limonene is another no-brainer. I include that with everybody, no matter who you are. Just do one of those bottles every few months at the very least. Okay, once again, it's just giving things a clean up. Some Bio-C, especially with the person catabolic. Look, as we start pushing this person, you can see the catabolic underneath the Bio-C is a Empirical Labs product designed specifically for this imbalance, of trying to help push that person just a little bit more anabolic. Once again, this needs to be validated. Once we go through and check out some of these pHs, just to make sure that this is where it gets a little bit more interesting and a little bit more, we just got to just not take everything face value and just go like bang, 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 and just do it. We've just got to take things just a little bit steady. So the catabolic, this is something that I would move forward with once I know what's going on with the pHs more than anything else. Okay, because a high pH, urine pH, is not a sign of catabolic. Okay, it's more of a sign of anabolic more than anything else. Okay, so we need to verify that. But let's just assume that the person is a little bit more catabolic. Certainly this person's got some insomnia, and catabolic can help with that massively. Okay, and as we start building the body back up, the body's going to start using more vitamin C. So Bio-C is an Empirical Labs product. It's a plant-based C. It's a very, very good one. Of course, you don't have to get this one, but we don't use ascorbic acid for this job. We make sure it's plant-based. It's whole food. Of interest, when you get a very catabolic person, you tend to get, if you were to do a test on the urine, a vitamin C test, you will find quite high levels because the body's not using much at that time, because it's in a breakdown mode. It's not in a build-up mode. We've got to start pushing the body more into an anabolic, more into a rebuilding, replenishing, refreshing mode before it will start using more vitamin C. Okay, so there's no good just hammering vitamin C without working on the catabolic imbalance. That's why they're both together there. Okay, magnesium chloride. Look, this person's going to have hydrochloric acid issues. The chloride's going to help with that massively. This person's got very low breath rate. Chloride is very good at lifting breath rate. It acidifies the bloodstream just a little bit more. The bloodstream is way too alkaline. So magnesium chloride is a good choice. Okay, magnesium malate is a pretty good choice as well. But but the malate isn't going to help so much with building the hydrochloric acid, whereas the chloride is. So this is where you could just use your, you just got to go through the thinking and just look. Is it going to make a massive difference whether it's chloride or whether it's malate? Well, it may or may not. But the malate, being malic acid, will also help acidify the bloodstream just a little bit. But chloride seems to do a better job at that. Okay, and at the end of the day, we've got some digestive issues. Whack it on the skin, get it into the bloodstream straight away, and typically when we have slow oxidizers, very slow breath rate issues, when we start putting magnesium chloride on the skin, we sort of tend to get a reaction pretty quick. And the client, you do it, try it yourself if you're an A, especially with a low breath rate. I tend to be more on the low breath rate, a slow oxidizer, more anabolic than anything else. I'm a blood type A. Especially when if I have sugars, I rarely drink wine anymore, but if I do, I really know it, and I whack some magnesium chloride on my body, and I notice a difference within 15 seconds. I can start feeling the difference. And quite often, like I said, you'll find people with low breath rates that will feel the same, okay, because it starts working on them straight away. And it just lifts that breath rate a bit, and we lift that breath rate a bit, we're getting more oxygen, we start to acidify the bloodstream a little bit more. We're going to give the body the capability, or the blood, the capability of releasing that oxygen. Remembering, the more alkaline our bloodstream, the more oxygen the blood cells can contain, but will pick up, as opposed to acid, where it won't even pick it up in the first place. But we start running into the bell curve effect, and this is when our body starts to struggle to release that oxygen. So just by acidifying the bloodstream just a little bit, you can start to get more energy very, very quickly. Okay, this is why the P5P can work very well, because it acidifies the bloodstream. The magnesium chloride, well, it can relax you, and it can also, because you've got the magnesium, you've got the chloride that acidifies the bloodstream a little bit. You can start to feel the difference straight away. Okay, and if you're if you've got true systemic alkalosis, which is quite rare, which is when you've got very high saliva, which is basically a reflection of your tissues and your urine pHs, you take some phosphoric acid. That's another, taking 10 drops of phosphoric acid drops in a glass of water, and often within 10 seconds you can feel the difference, because it's suddenly your body starts releasing, your blood starts releasing the oxygen. And it can really make a big difference, not only just in your physical energy, but also your mental energy and clarity and all that sort of stuff. Okay, and I urge you to get some of this stuff. And if you're working with clients, or you run into the problem with low breath rates yourself, you tend to be a little bit too alkaline, you have problems with your blood type A, grab some of this. When you can buy some of these phosphoric acid drops, I know they're a little bit hard to get hold of. The link that I often provide, they're quite often out, but read some of the testimonials on this stuff. It's amazing. It's amazing for so many different reasons. But play around with it. Try it out. Experiment with this stuff so that you can learn yourself. You can hear it all from me. Everyone's going to be a little bit different, but nothing beats you playing around and say, I'm going to just try a little bit of this, see what it does, check out my blood, what are my pHs, what are my breath rate, what's my blood pressures, what's my sugar readings, how am I feeling, what's my well-being score. Okay, start playing around with this. We're not looking at a rule book here. We're looking at guidelines. Okay, and this is how I learned a lot of this stuff. You learn the basics. We learn the fundamentals. We understand the philosophy behind all this. We understand how things work. Then we start playing around to find out how this applies to me. Okay, because it's going to be a little bit different to how it applies to you. Okay, and the learning that you can get through that process is incredible. It's amazing. I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years, and I believe I have a very good handle on a lot of this stuff now because of that. Okay, it's not just about this is the rule book. If you've got this, you do that. No. Get some of this stuff, play around, understand, feel it yourself. Okay, trial it, experiment, feel it. Okay, and when you start doing that, write the stuff down, start measuring, start understanding the correlation, start understanding relationships between your breath rate and how you feel, and your mental clarity. and it just helps massively. You work through some of this stuff, and then it gives you the power to be able to help yourself and clients in minutes sometimes. Excuse me. Okay, Bio-C, we talked about that. Okay, so get the body moving back into an anabolic phase. So our body uses more vitamin C at night time than it does in the day. Okay, but it's water soluble. It's like MSM, so we need to take it. We need to take it ideally throughout the day and not just one big lump. Okay, because our body will pee out what it doesn't need. It can't hold on to it. All right, catabolic. We talked about that. Magnesium chloride. And then we come down to the Digestezyme, HCl, Beet Flow. Look, this person has digestive issues. Every A that I work with, I'm always going to be looking at Digestezyme, the HCl for sure. If unless this person's on a pure plant-based diet, they're going to need some enzymes for sure. So Digestezyme. Remember, Digestezyme does contain some HCl. So if we just had some digestive issues and the person was maybe a blood type O, which typically produces enough hydrochloric acid, we might have just gone for Digestezyme. But being a blood type A, HCl for sure. Okay, and if you want to get anything, if you're going to eat any sort of animal protein and whatnot, you're not going to get it with HCl. Without the HCl. Okay, even with Digestezyme on its own, probably won't be enough. And the Beet Flow, just to make sure that we thin the bile and make sure, once again, that we don't start taking a body that has low stomach acid production, that we suddenly start adding acid into the system without ensuring that we have bile. Remember, the acid, of course, the stomach acid is acidic, and the bile is very alkaline. Okay, and it's the coming together of these acid and alkaline that really where a lot of this digestion happens. Okay, so never, at least for 1 month, one course of this Beet Flow, just make sure that we've got some bile flowing. Okay, and typically that will be, there's a number of markers. Passing gas is a big marker that is not flowing. But also 6.4, anything below 6.4 and a saliva pH will also be an indicator that bile isn't flowing very well. This person's pH is 7, saliva pH is 7, so you would look at that and go, oh, well, that looks okay. But the fact that she's passing gas is a big indicator. It has much more weight, and the 7 is more of an indication that the person's just pushing overall just a little bit too alkaline. Okay, so just to go over that, just to grain, right at the top, hierarchy, making sure we're getting a bit of grounding. Don't underestimate that. If we don't have the water, we don't have the means to be able to get nutrition into the cells. We don't have the means for getting toxins out of the cells. The river of life is dried up without water. Okay, this is not just about hydrating and just drinking a little bit of water because it hydrates me. We've got to think about what do we mean by hydration. Okay, it's a means for everything to start working. Okay, the salt, of course, we've got to have the salt. We've got to have the means for energy to flow. The P5Ps, this is all about getting those inverted pHs. Okay, when you end up going going through the lesson when I talk about the assessment tools, the spreadsheets that I use, and when we start entering the numbers and we start doing the imbalance guides and whatnot, we'll see that as soon as we put in a inverted pH, we get a little flag that comes up just to remind everybody, get this checked out. All right, MSM, great for anabolics. A little bit more. We need to be a little bit more wary with catabolics. Okay, but if we can, we do everything we can to make sure that everybody can get some MSM. Or at least give it a shot because it's just so powerful on such a systemic level. Okay, it works on everything. And then just some sort of standard stuff down below. D-limonene standard, Bio-C is standard. Make sure that we got some sort of plant-based. I mean, ideally we get all of this from food if we can. Okay, it's not necessarily that convenient for some people to get all of this stuff from food, and some of these minerals you're not going to be able to, vitamins you're not going to be able to get from food anyway. But look, Bio-C, it's empirical labs, it's a very good vitamin C, and then the digestive stuff down the bottom. But once again, look, get to this P5P, and I think if I come down here, you can see where I've made some notes here. If we come down to inverted pHs somewhere here. Here we go, number 5. Your pH is inverted. Urine higher than saliva is really inconsistent. We need to jump on it and push things back where they should be. Okay, so this is where making sure that you always include this if you're working with a client to get them to do this. So it just gives us, just so we know where we're at. Okay, and if the person comes back and they go, well, it was, it's come back down. It was, it was averaging 5.8 over the last 3 days. Well, then you can safely say, well, that's not an issue. And we'll probably say that maybe then that person is pushing a little bit more catabolic, so it just gives you a little bit more information to work on. Okay, so just some general, and you're going to get these sort of standard recommendations. So you're going to get some examples which you can use, and you can just change and chop around yourself if you want. Some standard stuff. Just to when I talk to the clients, I'm not just giving them a report. I'm also educating them along the way, as you probably know. Okay, when I do an hour consult, a couple of things. It usually goes for about an hour and 20 minutes because I can't not, talk about things that need to be talked about. But also it's the educational side of things. Okay, making sure that we educate the client and making sure they understand that we need to build this foundation. Blood type A, just a stand blurb there. Make sure that we look at blood type data if we can. And like I said, the pHs, if that comes up, make sure you include that and you get that going. Okay, digestion is struggling, making sure just really summarize what we've spoken about, so when the client takes us away, they can look at it again and they can be reminded. Okay. One other item I want to talk about, and I didn't talk about this earlier on in the video, and I should have, because it's very, very important. Vitamin D3 supplementation. Look, Dr. Kerry Reams talks about the importance of, once urine pH reached 6.4 or above, to stop D3 supplementation. Okay, once we get up over 6.4, 6.5, 6.6, and especially once we're getting up to around about 8, we're already running into high calcium issues, and this is going to cause all sorts of problems, as I've discussed before. Way too alkaline system, resistance to the flow of energy, low oxygen levels. We're going to have calcium precipitating. We're going to have bone spurs. We're going to have calcification. We're going to have viral. We're going to have so many issues caused by too much calcium in the system. It's not funny. So just please just take note of that. And when you're doing your readings, either for yourself or you're doing testing for other clients, make sure you ask this question: Are you supplementing with D3? But once the pH, especially if pHs are above, or 6.4 and above. Okay, and especially in this day and age when everyone's, or the popular belief is that we need to get pHs up around 7.2, 7.3, which is absolute nonsense. That's where the blood needs to be. We're not measuring blood here. We're measuring filtered blood, and we have to accommodate the fact that this is not blood we're measuring. Okay, so anything above 6.4, and the last thing we want to do, especially when we're talking about a client with a pH of 8, it's going to be disastrous to try and add more calcium into the system. Okay, that's the last item there. Okay, thanks very much. Well, that was. I hope you got something out of that session. Like I said, there's not a lot of strong markers coming up, but what did come up was important, and I wanted you to get your head around these numbers, and especially these inverted pHs, and especially when a client has a degenerative disease or there's a history of degenerative disease, especially when it comes to cancer. Okay, because it just may help give you some clues and give you some markers to start working on that are really going to make a big difference and actually have a quite significant impact on where this person goes with their health from the point when you start working with them. Okay, I mean, there may or may not be a direct relationship with these pHs, but regardless, it's very important to jump on them anyway, because nothing's going to work, no matter what this person's doing for her breast cancer. It's still not, and if it's coming back, it's not, the inverted pHs are not going to help. They're going to hinder. So regardless, you need to jump on them. Okay. All right. Thanks very much, guys. As usual, if you've got any questions, put them on the pinned post on the biohacking Facebook group. And as I build up a few questions, I will be doing a video and getting back to you on those. Okay, thanks, guys. Enjoy. I hope you got something out of this, and any feedback, once again, just get back to me. Okay. Bye-bye.